we get more done.
It is as
by
though
not
the
doing
things
what
in the
someone
room,
else is doing.
in the world, in the
The
woods,
telegram arrived but never
were the
departed.
meanings of
The
thinking.
picture on the front page has no caption.
No need for
we're on a
competition,
sinking ship.
even with oneself.
He told me about the seeds that whirled and showed me
We're all the
one.
same species.
I think he said they were from the tulip
Originally,
tree.
we had in
I
mind
am not who I was.
And in the
what you
wind,
might
he
call
said,
an imaginary
they go great
human.
distances.
We were
A
artisans.
process
I looked out the
of
window
basic
just
emptiness.
now.
Now we're the observers.
They suggest an
Just a few
innovation in
things
toys.
arising in it.
All you have to do is go straight on.
What we had
Glad
there
to
in
have you
mind
at any moment.
was not so much ours
Turn to the right
that we thought it was,
or to the left,
as it was
coming back
something like
or
those
never.
Japanese gardens
coming in, of
with
course,
a few stones in them.
out of the rain.
And then when we actually set to work, a kind of avalanche came about, which corresponded not at all with that beauty which had seemed to appear to us as an objective. Where do we go then? Do we turn around, go back to the beginning and change everything? Or do we continue and give up what had seemed to be where we
We
were
are trying
going?
to go fast enough to catch
Well,
up with
What we
ourselves.
do is go straight on.
This helps us
That way lies, no doubt,
to keep
the
ourselves ignorant of knowing where
I
we
had
are
no
going.
idea this was going to happen.
Things come in
I did have an idea
and we
something
send
else would
answers.
happen. Ideas
By
are one
slow
thing,
and fast
and
mail,
what happens another.
telegram, and
At
telephone.
this
The
point,
weather's
again,
changing.
space between things.
Now and then we
is
appear in
useful,
person to one another.
but we are not going into
We take
retirement.
time now and then
An
to
announcement
see what
arrived.
someone's
We are
doing, but what
islands.
he did.
We are glass ones,
There she was with
No
her back to
blinds.
me,
An
painting
object,
that
a
plenty
work
of old
art,
shoes
say.
lying around.
with
We
a
have to
stick
see it as something
as
Also,
long
these
as that of a
islands are
broom.
not cubes,
not as it did to him who made
but are
it,
spheres.
but as it does while we
We
see
go
it.
out from them in any direction,
We don't have
not
to
just
go
north,
anywhere.
east, south,
It
and
comes
west.
to us.
Those signs that are
Field,
misplaced,
therefore,
Sunny day.
is not explicit
But
the
that
ones on
as
the
a
street
term of
over to the
description.
left, the one-way street.
And thus, a piece of
There are
paper
two signs, each
also
saying
falsifies
one way,
the
and they
situation.
point toward one another.
one way or another.
That is,
We
they
are
are at cross
obliged to
purposes.
be able to go in all.
Were they misplaced by children?
Just as fungi have given me a change of
And is
affect.
that what was meant by the scripture, that we would be led
Getting
by
rid of
children?
leaves makes trees
We are still going,
I asked the man
and we are
at
certain
the
that we
toll
will never
booth
get there.
what would be my best bet.
It
He
is
said,
just
just
as
go
I
straight
thought.
ahead.
The children are out playing.
I noted
and
that
rest
the
of
road
us
shortly became very
are running the
confusing.
danger of not being able to do what we have
He said,
to do.
why should it? A car behind
And
me
so, to put it bluntly,
made me
what will
proceed
we
against
do
my better judgment.
if we cannot go on with
We
what we are
purposefully
doing.
do what is unnecessary. And we have the brash to say that is exactly what had to be done.
I congratulate myself
We have come,
that I had the good sense
are we
to put
still
the car
going?
in a garage.
someone wrote that we've touched bottom. An impermanent bottom, he hastened to add, but then added that we truly have touched bottom as far as our knowledge and tools are concerned. As I was saying, we have come, or are we still going, to a point where it is necessary to speak at cross purposes with what we are saying. It is because whatever we were saying so failed to hit the mark.
As simple as it sounds.
Now at last we know that saying one thing requires saying the opposite in order to keep the whole statement from being like a Hollywood set.
Actually take something long.
Perhaps it would be better to be silent, but A, someone else would be speaking,
One might say, well, that
and B, it wouldn't keep us from going, and we would continually
I was absolutely amazed
be doing what we are doing. I remember once his saying, "But this opens up an entirely untouched field of poetry." And to this day, neither one of us has budged to move into that untouched, open field. I put it away. Today, in the newspaper, they bring up the subject, but continue persons who threaten to take their lives and are picked up by the police here will not be jailed anymore, but will be taken to the hospital instead.
But the other one, she who came from India, was grateful for silence.
He hears them all together.
She could see easily the possibility of the omission of a constant connective. Nothing needs to be connected to anything else, since they are not separate, not separated irrevocably.
We are doing only what is necessary.
Past appearances are to some
Once when I thought I was going
and to
east,
others clarifying.
I went west.
Right now, perhaps again the children are teaching us.
Do I assume the
They have no
microscope will be
conception
ruined?
of a long line. They have only
Poison
a short
ivy this time,
attention span.
but not the other.
And the mass media,
The appointment
they take it
is for
granted
9
that we,
a.m.
like children,
Friday.
need to have everything constantly changing. I can find no example now in our consciousness of the necessity in us for a long line outside of us. She called it the uncommitted void. If we were really prepared, we would need not only boots, but roller skates too. Then we could visit the museums with long halls lined with art. Do you suppose that eventually they will clear everything up? Enough so that the children will have to stop playing? There is a fear, too, there, that an idea which is not in line will somehow cause one to lose the thread. What results is work without interruption, apologies for absence of quality, and shortness of quantity, and complaints that they did something to it which was not part of the original intention.
We are going into the field of frequency, and that doesn't mean that we are leaving the notes of the major and minor scales and the modes, for they are in the field we're going into. The same holds true for the field of amplitude, the field of time, the field of duration, the field of space. Though we are not leaving anything, our notations are changing, and sometimes even disappearing. Usefulness is uppermost in our minds.
Between 1930,
We begin to be certain that we never were where we thought we were,
There is a story that is to the
I
point.
moved around a good
that
deal.
not only
I got
were
used to
mistakes
it.
made on occasion, noticeable wrong
When
notes,
he came into his inheritance,
but that the whole kit and caboodle was a mistake.
And I couldn't really tell.
The Cuban
engaged in a
boy
wide variety
is
of
partly
activities,
German.
Actually, I still have the same
one after the
goal
other.
in mind.
We're having 2 or 3 gatherings.
When the war came along, he went into
Our
it.
sense of whether or not we did what we said we would do
His activity
is slipping.
during the war, or even
What will we do now?
It turned out he was not in town at all.
later he moved back and forth,
I noticed, magnificent as he is,
more or less the same
that he can't
methods.
tell where he's going.
And as I say elsewhere, he started at different times, different schools, and repudiated both of them, which is only partly true.
Make any sounds you like.
He moved around
Loudspeakers,
a good deal
tape machines,
and even
that's
came
nothing.
to America.
You can have
But
a
then he went
super
back.
synthesizer.
He had been at one time in Ireland, and he began to more and more include it in the places to which he went, and he included Norway. He found a rare mushroom, and since it was in a dry season, he built a protection for it and provided it with water, fulfilling other commitments and yet studying the growth of the fungus. He involved himself in many trips of 250 miles each. Is that what we are doing?
What do you think? Moving off as we might, all of us, to the moon, might we not all of us look through our papers?
We will never have a better idea of what we're doing than we do right now.
Flowers for Mother, and wounded himself seriously.
It is not in the nature of doing to improve, but rather to come into being, to continue, to go out of being, and to be still, not doing.
2 years.
That still not doing is a preparation. It is not just static. It is a quiet readiness for whatever,
What are we
and the
doing about
multiplicities
technique?
are already there in the
We can
making.
use it or leave it alone.
We watch for signs
We
and
can
accept
remember
omens.
Interesting when we hear that
and
someone has
invent new
traveled
Everything
to a
is an
foreign country.
omen.
If you are
So we
alive,
I
continue
know that if
doing
I
and
managed to
changing.
tell you where we are going,
Do we
it
have,
wouldn't interest you,
if not ideas about what we're doing,
and it shouldn't,
feelings about our actions,
except as conversation.
what we've made,
Someone does not travel
we're
at
losing
all
them
or
we
very
can be
little.
silent and so forth.
because we're no
But I am
longer
going
making
alone.
Technically speaking,
We heard
We are
that
in
they
the
might
process.
have done Finland.
In the Martian
And it
analysis,
is easy to
we
see
are
that we
all
are
one
not
happy
separate
family.
processes,
We too have not gone to Finland.
but are in them.
busy
And
doing
what will be
something
that
I
our
mentioned that
feelings
nothing
are not
seemed irrelevant,
gather at the river,
But in them,
and he said, yes.
stick together,
criticism,
We see more and more connections,
awareness, and use
but we are doing something else.
enter into making.
We are putting separations between each thing and its
We are
other.
glad to see that we are noticing what happens.
And why is it when we have no silence, they say, why didn't you?
Or we could say,
and still not go out into
we
space.
see more clearly, but we can't tell you what we see.
Areas environmental to highly attractive points, which are exceedingly difficult to get
go
to,
into a crowd with a sharp
and
awareness
areas which are
of the
unattractive,
idiosyncrasies of
period.
each person in it, even
It
if
is
they're
these
marching,
latter that are
and
so
we
useful.
along with them.
A,
We
because
see,
they're all around
to put
us
it coldly,
Americans.
differences
B,
between
because
two
we can
things
actually go
that
to
are the
them
same.
instead of just talking about going,
This enables
as
us
we
to
might
go
have to
anywhere,
do in the other case.
alone or with others,
C,
and any
because the
ordinarily
experience
too large
erodes
number of
our
others.
preconceptions about what attracts us.
We could take a vacation in a hotel
Nevertheless,
on Times Square.
We would still like to have a center
But what we
for
do see
experimental
is
music.
that we have to give up our ideas about where we are going, since if we don't, we won't get anywhere. If you'd asked me a few years ago, or even just last year, whether I'd like to live in an air-conditioned suite where I wouldn't be able to open the windows, I would
Will
have given
we
you
ever
a
again
flat
really
no.
bother to describe in words or notation the details of something that has not then yet happened? Many will do this, and the changes in solfège that will soon take place in the schools are alarming just
If
to
we
imagine.
really did change,
There will be an increase
have
in
to
the
bother
amount of
about
time we
practicing.
spend waiting,
of course,
waiting
we
for
gradually
machines
slip out
to
of
do what
doing
we
all the
planned
things
for
we
them to do.
practiced. And then when we
and then
started
discovering a
going,
mistake was
we would
made,
be in a
or
state
the
of
circuits
not
were
knowing.
out, and finally getting an
We
acceptable
would be as interested as
approximation.
anybody else.
This is not
Have
unrelated
painters
to
always been
thinking
looking?
the recordings, say,
Musicians
sound of
were
the
Rabelais
gong
dictated to,
is the sound
just
of the
beginning
gong
to listen.
when it isn't recorded.
It was something else to say
It
it's
is
a
at
good
this
thing
crossroads
children, aged
that we
5
must
and
change
7,
direction.
are being taught.
if that is, we are going where we are going.
We can tell very easily
Foot or in the
I know
air.
perfectly
whether
well
something we're
I'm
doing
wandering,
I have just ascertained
is contemporarily
that the clock
necessary.
is
and my
25
eyes are
minutes
not as good as they
fast.
were, but they're improving.
The way we do it is this.
That means that I
If
still
something
have
else
time.
happens that ordinarily would be thought to interrupt
Probably
it,
not
doesn't
enough
alter
to
it,
finish what I'm doing.
then it's working the way
Time.
it now must.
And how much
So that you
else
could even
down
have
the drain.
missed
This
the point
statement
at
is
the
in
beginning.
line and can be
unpredictable
illustrated by former
what will
statements I
happen
have made
next.
about
In or out
painting
of
and
it,
music,
to say nothing
but
of
here
And that,
extend
of
to
course,
doing.
nothing
is
special,
largely due to the weather.
nothing
That is,
predetermined.
about painting, if the work
Just
is not
something
destroyed by
We made
shadows,
our arrangements very early in advance.
and
We
about
could
music,
say to
if the
ourselves,
work
And
is
they
not
even
destroyed by
include
"I'm in
ambient
search of something
sounds,
interesting."
I have no idea.
and so the
what
doing,
we'll
Special
eat,
things to make two things more different.
or
than
indeed
not
whether
destroyed
I'll
by
get there.
simultaneous,
we were in fact intended
And whether
to
the
stop.
plan still holds.
semi-situated action.
and whether if
But we
they
must
do
have
hold,
something to do.
I'll be able to get
It
everything
must then
done that
have
I
no
in mind to do.
objective, no goal.
This is our immediate and permanent condition.
Time must be of little,
and we just
I was
fail
going to say no,
continually to notice it,
consequence.
even when we think we agree.
I pray one day I may.
If, for instance,
But
as
other
may
prayers
well
would
have
be,
been the
Dear
case,
Lord, let
if
me not run out of
someone
ink.
procrastinated, then what?
I have committed myself
The
to
obstacles
quantity.
I foresee to the fulfillment of my obligation,
And dear Lord,
which is what we are
do
doing.
let me catch up, otherwise I will have to become not
Why don't
contemporary
I see the
in my
others?
terms, but ancient
Don't I
in my
have
terms,
eyes and a
working
head
like a
and
monk
ears?
in a tower
They are
with the
not as good as
princess
they were.
of his own
Also the
imagination.
metabolism, and perhaps they're
I
getting worse.
refuse art, if that is what it is.
We are now told we'll be
But
able to
unless
get
I am
so
cautious,
far,
that is precisely what it will become. Mine, I mean.
and a day ago we were told it would
He
be
came in and
impossible
warned
to go
me.
in that direction
And then another,
because there was no money.
and thanked me for Mallarmé
There was money
and job.
for the eyes,
A discontinuity of particles.
but no money for the
And then I
ears.
sneezed.
Which now seems like
I'm
going
not
to do it
obliged to
anyway.
tell you all of this.
just now
often we think
And
I'm
just
obliged to
as the
speak to
years
you,
go along,
and that is what we, you and I,
in a
are
kind
doing.
of slapdash way.
And now I've just heard
Where
about
is
Marchetti.
their sense of urgency?
In this
They've made a
particular
mistake.
case, I'm obliged to do 4 times as much
I do hope it isn't a mistake.
personal fulfillment of the same duty.
Hidalgo's gone to Paris,
now we have the
and
exact
Marchetti's gone to
Where I
Milano,
give myself to thought,
going into the army.
and Spain is left without anyone.
to stories and subjects, and where are we going?
What we need now is not
A
disarmament
great deal of music has been written.
and people marching in the
When I
streets,
first saw the book, that it was probably
but someone,
Live and broadcast.
someone active in Spain,
Involved carrying a
I
gun.
looked
interested
for the bookstore
in modern
and
art.
the publisher.
Rarely, for that reason,
Why do they all leave it?
Nor did I ask anyone to
What is wrong with Spain?
to keep from
However,
getting
when I
in it.
met someone who lived in the town where the book is
Going
published,
along as usual with changes.
I asked him if he'd
Very
mind going to
interesting
the
changes.
publisher's office.
We are going in such a way
finding
that
out whether
even
the
if we
book was
do what
available.
we would if we liked, as though in
I did
trance,
say, don't take the
our
trouble until
activity
you hear
meets
from me.
with alteration.
Before writing
What's
to the
doing?
publisher,
Highly
I
possible that
finally
Never a
wrote
dull
letters
moment.
to the publisher.
It's snowing.
which
And a
when I
week or
was
so
not
later,
taking
the
It
book
began in the
finally
night.
arrived.
The roofs and eaves of the houses are white, and the natural tendency of the ends of the branches of the hemlocks to droop has been encouraged.
Because the answer could be this or
The
that.
traffic continues more or less as doggedly as it did yesterday.
Refused
However, it is music.
Are people the way their land and air
by
is?
something no more solid than
If so, should they not have 4 or 5 purposes instead of one, and let those interpenetrate with one another in some interesting, natural way?
Only when we make
For instance, this snow is not a proper winter snow.
We say,
subject.
It seems more like the last one does just before spring arrives.
and where we are
But the
going,
caretaker who swept the sidewalk is already
we
thinking
doubt
of the ice
whether
to
we can
come.
verify our statement.
Those stones are mighty slippery. There'll be more than one
We know
person falls
perfectly well
down this
now
winter.
that this has something very much to do
maddened
with
by the
everything
length of
else.
its own winter. But now